So,
Okay.
have we heard from Stu and Joe?
We got Stu.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm sorry.
Okay,
Sorry.
good for,
I'm still in like brief mode. Do we heard from any more folks who were?
I'm pretty sure Jeremy's joining remotely. Steve is usually remote, but I haven't heard from him. What else? Johnson. So I guess with that, we can sort of get started and see if some more people file in here. We made it through a year. Wow, it's kind of incredible. Really flew by. I think we really talked about a lot of good stuff. Got some good stuff out of this group. Got a copy here of the letter that you guys have put together after our last meeting, just if anybody wants that for reference, we got back a copy. Also have an agenda to pass around. It's kind of rough, so we might be there a little bit, but just kind of general roadmap. Yeah, so tonight we're very fortunate to have an executive, Jim Metzger, with us here. We're going to turn it over to Mayor Noble now. He kind of said just a short introduction before we open up the discussion.
yeah, and so, thank you, and county executive, I don't know if you know what it is, but, so one of the great things, that we've been, as a group, about a year ago, we appointed the MRTA task force, to be able to, come together, wide diversity of folks and views on cannabis. We're able to come together to speak about ways that we here in the city of Kingston can best implement this law. And I just want to thank each and every one of you for the work that you did to be able to put together your comments. It was last month and a half ago, they delivered those comments to the Kingston Common Council to be able to help guide future decision-making process when it comes to how the city of Kingston can best make sure that equity is included in all of our decision-making processes, helping to guide the city on how best it should spend any revenue that comes into to the city due to the sale of cannabis here in our community, how to prioritize going after any state grant funding that may come out with this initiative, and also being able to have some best practices around education, enforcement, and how we can continue to have dialogue with the community when it comes to dealing with cannabis in the future. And I just want to thank each and every one of you for your feedback. I hope that you feel like this was a valuable process for yourself, but also I know that it's been a valuable process for the community and for helping to guide the city, because these are uncharted waters. And I think that, we have been really helping to lead, I think hopefully other cities and communities in starting these conversations, even though I think we got ours started, as you know, a year ago. There are other communities that just now are figuring out what to do, and they haven't done any of this work. And so it's coming, and they just maybe weren't quite prepared. But I feel like Kingston is really prepared now for what's to come, and we've done our due diligence. We've been able to, really have these deep discussions. And in your very last get together, you all mentioned that it would be great to be able to talk to someone in the county about how does the county see cannabis kind of rolling out here in Ulster County. If there's anything that we should know kind of in our final days as a task force, that and ways that we can better partner with the county going forward, and ways that we could also make sure that our small businesses are being supported in this process. And of course, we thought of no one better than our own county executive, Jen Metzger, who not only helped, with the MRTA law, but then to be able to sit on the Cannabis Control Board during its infancy and bringing it, all the way to fruition. I know we're going to miss you, but at the same time, we really thought it would be a great opportunity to just have an informal dialogue with you about, how we can continue as a city to be able to partner with the county going forward. And hopefully you'll be able to use some aspects of our own letter to be able to, some of the ideas and feedback that we had, to be able to share it with other supervisors and leaders here in the county.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's my long-winded
Thank you.
introduction. So I'm sorry, Jonathan.
No, this is-
Thank you, Mayor, and, I want to say you guys were definitely like the first, like I've heard of no other municipality that like really so proactively, took this on and really tried to forge their own path with this law and this new industry. And so I want to thank the mayor and for his foresight and all of you for your work over the last year. And I've talked to a couple of you about the work early on, but have not been like, I'm eager to read the letter and, just hear some conclusions you all came to. So, I'm basically from the county perspective, I feel like Ulster County is the cannabis industry can go in two different directions, but it can be this like large corporate dominated, unsustainable, inequitable economic force, or it could be a real model of like socially just, equitable, and sustainable, and small scale. And it can go either way. I mean, I think that the regulatory framework that they're developing is really trying, to the best of the control board's abilities to be faithful to the mission of the MRTA. But it's capitalism, and things can go. We can do a lot at the local and county level to make sure that it realizes the real goals of that law, which is to like address and the disproportionate harm that was done to Black and Brown communities primarily. And people don't talk about it quite as much, but the law is also very big on reducing the climate and environmental impacts of the industry, which can be actually really incredible. It's not as green as people think it is. My kind of vision at the county level is for us to support the right kind of industry. And I actually, the former economic development director had put out an RFP for consultant service for a consultant, but I pulled it back because it to me wasn't like fully supportive of that vision. And I actually just revised it and we're just putting it out. We're re-putting it out again. But basically it would provide, it's an RFP for, I'm really trying to encourage organizations to partner up because no one organization has all of the expertise that's needed. But if we really want to support social and economic equity applicants, and if we really want to support sort of small scale, sustainable, regenerative practices in the growth of cannabis, then we need to provide, first of all, compliance support for prospective licensees. It's hundreds of pages of regulations. If it's a lot for an entrepreneur to digest and to implement. So others will need like business planning support if they have not been a small business person before. And also support in really understanding how to grow cannabis in a regenerative and sustainable way. So this RFP seeks to provide these services to people in our communities interested in pursuing licenses. It would provide initially we would, contract with partner organizations for a year to provide that support. And the idea is to create basically a small scale craft industry. It would be it's very specific in the RFP. This would provide support for people applying for micro business licenses, cooperative licenses, and outdoor tier 1 and tier 2, which is small scale cultivation licenses. That to me is what makes sense for Ulster County and what is sort of best supportive of the goals of the MRTA. So we're just putting that out, but down the road, and just, I don't know, have you guys been watching the control board meetings? And I think they're going to, they're likely going to approve the regulations. They're in the middle of the second public comment period, but I think by the middle of September, they're going to be done and they're going to be out. And then they'll start issuing licenses after that. It's going to take some time, and there's going to be a lot of applications for licenses. The state is also, it has its own incubator mentorship program to support social and economic equity applicants. So it's actually built into this RFP that we partner with OCM's Office of Cannabis Management team that are working on this to take advantage of the resources that they're providing. And the people working on that at the state level I know and are amazing, including Brian Farmer, who's in Rosendale, local resident. So that's the idea, to provide that support over the next year. And going forward, what I would love to do is develop essentially a certification and brand for Ulster County for equitable, sustainable, sun-grown cannabis for Ulster County. It basically gets like a seal of meeting those goals. And there have been other certifications that are mostly self-certifying, but we'd have to have a staff. You'd have to have someone go out and at least do some inspection, make sure that they're meeting those standards. But that's another way both to kind of support that market here and that brand, and support a particular path for the development of the industry. So those are the plans to date that we have. And yeah, we're in the process of hiring, well, we'll have a new economic development director in place for the county. Hopefully, he'll be confirmed, Kevin Lynch will be confirmed by the legislature in August. And we're also creating a new agricultural administrative services position within economic development. So that's like another kind of support at the cultivation side, potentially. So we'll have some staff in addition to the consultant. And there's also me, keen interest and knowledge of the regulatory framework. So it can be helpful in that way to folks. Yeah, and that's where we are so far. So I'd be happy to hear. I don't know what your conversations have been like around the kind of how you'd like to see the industry develop. And also just to mention, you probably read in the paper, New Paltz has decided to take advantage of this showcase option at the state level, so if you wanted information about that, I don't know if that's something the city wants to consider. But it's a way to support small growers. There was a huge oversupply right now, so it's a way to, until there's a bottleneck because the licensing isn't out yet, so. But yeah, be happy to take any questions or talk about anything you guys would like to talk about.
I have a few questions.
Sure.
When are the lounges gonna be licensed? Because the way it's set up now, I mean, imagine New York State with liquor stores and no bars. That's what's going on, so
Yeah,
when are the lounge licenses gonna be given? Which I believe should have been first, but that's just,
well, yeah. So I haven't been on the board. And I haven't been actively involved in the board in any way. So I can't really give you any intel into like what their internal discussions are. Other than what I do know is that mid-September is their target date. But that is a type of license, and how they decide to like prioritize and focus the licenses, review about license applications. I don't know.
my other question. We had once discussed about this one applicant who is applying to open up in Kingston, I believe, and we were coming up with questions, we were gonna ask her. In my opinion, we should be like facilitating and helping people start, and instead of questioning, like any business, what your goals are for social equity and stuff. But my question is, we have a company like Etain, who is already in Kingston, who just sold for $243 million.
Yeah.
Are we asking them the same questions? What's your social equity goal? You're a big
Yeah.
corporation, you're owned by a Canadian company, not even a New York company. So you're here, you're gonna open up however many places they're gonna permit, which used to be 3, now it's open to more than 3 for big companies. So what kind of social equity are we gonna ask the big companies?
So
Etain
it's just-
had a provision.
It is just 3. It's set in the law. So they can't open more than 3 apiece.
I saw that there was a few companies that were given 4 licenses. There are one, I believe, is one of them.
Well, none of them have gotten licenses. None of the ROs have gotten licenses.
Okay.
So, and the ROs, registered organizations, which are the 10 licensed medical cannabis companies, they're restricted to 3 dispensaries each. The regs that are coming out require, for them, they have to pay a $20 million fee to even open a dispensary, which they're all making a lot of complaining noises about. But they can also sell wholesale.
Right.
And I think that that's really what they often, that's the route that their states is the wholesale market. It's like, so, but there are requirements also that some have been making noises about this as well, that in their dispensaries, the regulations currently require that they give 50% of their shelf space to, I think to social and economic equity, but it may just be to other products other than their own. And then after the first year, it's 40%. But so, and originally, the regs as they were originally proposed didn't allow them to enter the market for 3 years until 3 years after, but that's been changed. But they still have to pay a huge fee to get in. Etain, so, it's not clear when they're gonna get their licenses, when they're gonna be, they're certainly not prioritized in any way by the Cannabis Control Board. They are far more focused on all of the other licensees. So, but yeah, it's about, being supportive of the kind, I mean, we can do a lot to support the types of companies or businesses that we want to see thrive here.
Well, how small farmers that do.
Yeah, I mean, I have all kinds of wacky ideas, but I would love to have UCAT do a craft cannabis like tour, basically, so people don't have to drive or visit. And actually, I also want them to do that for the craft beverage industry, so people don't have to drink and drive. They can like go around UCAT bus, but they're like things we can do, cannabis, right? But somebody else suggested. They don't break. But anyway, there are things that we can do to create the environment for the right kind of industry to develop.
I love the idea of the Ulster County quality seal. Quality in cannabis is there's such a spectrum of it. If you've gone to any of the other states, I would say Colorado, from my experience, is like up there in terms of like quality. Massachusetts is pretty good. It's really hard in outdoor cannabis here, particularly, and you know this, but telling everybody else, because of the wet falls make bud rot and mold grow on the plant, and it's really difficult. So developing strains that are and varieties that are climatized to Ulster County, I think will be really important. Maybe not just Ulster County, but
Right.
our little microclimate
Yeah.
here because of how wet it is. And also helping farmers, because there's a big difference. Sun grown cannabis can be really good when done right and well in the right climate. But having a open greenhouse really helps with the light deprivation, but it's expensive for farmers to build that at scale, but it really increases the quality of cannabis.
Right, well,
I don't know
there are
if
mixed,
there's ways to help.
there are mixed feelings about that. So like the industrialization of cannabis and being grown indoors, it's like literally like a science project, but the environment is so controlled that they are able to make these beautiful big buds. But sunlight, you're all losing without using sunlight. There's like all of these other values to the plant that get lost when it's not grown outside, like the terpenes and everything else. I am not a connoisseur, but this is, from folks. I would gently push back.
No, I'm not saying a controlled greenhouse, I'm saying the open, where
Yeah.
the sun is growing them, no lights.
Okay,
It's open, where
Okay.
it protects your crop from rain,
yeah,
which kills cannabis in the fall here. And it makes it really hard for I've known small scale farmers who, it's really difficult in the fall because you can lose up to half of your crop to bud rot.
right.
And the ones who are able to afford to put those
Like
cover.
hoop houses and things like
Yeah,
that.
yeah, big,
So,
Hepworth does that.
yeah, big,
and
big.
hoop houses are actually not that costly, but hopefully there are, and can be constructed. They're very commonly used by small farmers around here. But yeah, there are those challenges without a doubt. Weather, and there's also land challenges, land access challenges, because land is predominantly owned by white people. And so there are those issues too. There was some, like, I feel like we need to like focus on that. I don't know how we can solve those issues, but we need to support Black and brown farmers and access to land, figure out ways to support that. That's gonna be really important. But yeah, there are some costs, there are gonna be some costs. The, other thing I wanna mention, is, well, our new economic development director has a background in finance, public finance, municipal finance, private finance. But the county has a revolving loan fund with $1 million in it that nothing's been done with it. It's just sitting there because we haven't had anyone who can administer it. So there's new opportunities now with the new director. And this is a potential area. Access to capital is one of the biggest issues. But interestingly, also, I was in a meeting with a bunch of folks that one in Hudson Valley Credit Union is also, they're planning on lending in Camden because they're state chartered credit union, so they'll be able to lend to the cannabis industry. So there are some potential sources of capital here for small entrepreneurs.
One question that I think has come up that I was given some feedback with, what we could do, because again, Kingston, we've made out a lot of space to grow, but we do know that we're probably going to be likely a destination for people to sell, right? Which is good for tax revenue. There is a tax revenue that comes from cannabis. Obviously, the state is going to get a big chunk. The municipality gets a piece, and I think out of everything that's sold in Kingston, the county gets a quarter of all of our sales tax, in essence, from cannabis. And so I think one of the questions that came up is is the county kind of starting to make plans for how it's going to invest its kind of cannabis sales tax yet? And
I will tell you, that hasn't been discussed at all. I just saw that this has been like a big focus of your task force, which is really interesting. It wasn't at all what I expected, but it's great. It's good to be figuring out how you're going to invest that. That it's, I think, an important conversation to have. It's an important conversation to have with the legislature.
Yeah, it's one of the things that
final decisions on such things.
Yeah, and so one of the ways that we, there's a lot of programs that we believe we can be putting in place to be able to help those that have been, harmed by convictions and sentencing, and sitting in jail over cannabis, as well as folks who, really could use access to, job training and so much, right, that could really benefit our residents. We feel pretty strongly that at some point, there's going to be revenue coming in that we're going to really need to have like a cannabis czar, if you will, that will help to like implement programs. And there could be like shared services that happens between like our municipalities and the county to be able to not have to reinvent, 23 different programs around the county to kind of meet some of these needs that are going to be coming up. And so I know that's kind of bubbled up here occasionally about how can we also work together with the county and some of our other colleagues and local government so that we're all not just doing the same thing with like little cuts of money. Like we talk about how can we utilize UCAT? We'd love to be able to have like a shuttle bus that comes up and down Broadway, going from bars and restaurants and folks that are in cannabis lounges and everything that's existing. But for us to do that on our own, to buy our own bus, to manage the bus, that probably doesn't make sense. But we may have some revenue though that we could invest with our partners to be able to make something like that happen. And so I think from my perspective, while you're here is just to say that, I think we all, out of this process, we feel really interested in partnering with the county going forward in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, absolutely. And I totally welcome that. And the city is obviously you will potentially see a lot of activity, probably, but the services I just talked about through this RFP are free to everyone, to all licensees. But there are like other things that we can definitely do to work together. And just knowing that we're providing these services, like you guys can potentially focus on other things. Unless we're so overwhelmed with like applicants that it's would be useful to have your own capacity in that department. But yeah, we totally welcome that. And you're going to have, as a city, you're going to have, you're close to the ground, to the to your residents and your community, so we should, be in touch about about just like what you're hearing and what the needs are, as this industry opens up. That would be really important. I haven't yet told the UCAT director, by the way, about this idea. I'm like one thing at a time with her.
Well, and one of the things
Great.
we've seen too is that, we've had, I've had lots of conversations with, cannabis, potential applicants that have come to Kingston to be like, hey, we want to be uptown, we want to be downtown, we want to be in Midtown. But I think we've really seen people struggle with that application process and just the unknown of not having regulations in place. Not, trying to get some of these conditional licenses, and then you've seen all of these announcements happening in the Hudson Valley, but so far we're not aware of any that have landed in Kingston yet, or anywhere near here.
None in All-Star so far.
And it just seems like we're this gap in the whole state, and we're like, what are we doing? It's like we're trying to be so on top of it. Our new zoning code basically lets people do it everywhere, and we're so totally ready, but it seems like Ulster County has been kind of skipped over. A little bit, and so
I know that New Paltz says reviewed and approved already locations for dispensaries. There's one going in the old Stewart's, former Stewart's on 32.
Yeah, that new building.
And
Zero.
Yeah, Zero Space.
Zero Place.
Actually, another one, I think potentially up closer to the Thruway. You may have also seen, but you can encourage people to submit, or if the city has locations, like Ellenville Mayor gave me addresses of places where he would like to see dispensaries. I sent it to OCM, and in case there were applicants that, were looking for a place in a particular town or in Ulster County. So, and I'm happy to do that for the city. The OCM is reviewing anyone's location. If you send a potential location, they'll screen it to see if it meets the regulatory requirements, because it can't be, have to be a certain distance from a school, from church, all of that. So yeah, they can kind of pre-screen. But it's hard to know if we've been, because it's really kind of on the applicants to identify a location. But I think if we have the support in place that will help people get to that stage, and certainly when we have, when we get the consultant team on board and start having educational sessions on different topics, help getting the word out about them in the community, this would be incredibly helpful too. But people need support, definitely need support. And it's daunting, that's why these big companies that got lawyers, that got all this, but it's hard for individuals.
Is there any plans for the farms that have such an overabundance, right now, that they can't move,
So that's what these showcases are meant to do, to help alleviate some of that oversupply. And it's funny, it sadly cannot be like a farmer's market model where the growers themselves sell directly, but that's because of the MRTA. The MRTA doesn't, we don't have micro business licenses. Once there are micro businesses, they can sell direct. But the full licensing program hasn't opened yet. And and the conditional cultivators, can't also have retail licenses. So it's set up in a way you have to have like a conditional retail license holder there to actually be paired with local growers. And there are regulations, it has to be, I think, at least 3 local cultivators, one local processor, and per conditional retail licensee. But then that's like enough to have a showcase event, which is really like local market somewhere. And it needs board approval, needs municipal approval, so for each one that you have to get a separate resolution from the board to make it happen. But it's a pretty quick turnaround, the approval process by OCM, 10 days. And yeah, New Paltz has already done it, New Paltz and one other, I'm trying to remember who was in the Finger Lakes, have already like hopped on it, passed the resolutions and are moving forward. So I don't know if it's something the county council will consider, but but it is an option to help.
And do you know in the New Paltz model, did the grower, the cultivators, did they find each other and come to New Paltz, or did New Paltz basically say, hey, we want to do this, and growers and cultivators, did they do like an
No, I didn't talk with them.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I'm intrigued to see how that all happened.
Yeah.
How did everyone come together?
Yeah,
to
I
do
mean, the
that?
application can be submitted by either a cultivator or a retail license, conditional retail license holder. But you do have to have those minimum walls, yeah.
Come on down to Kingston.
Yeah, maybe we'll reach out and figure out how that happens.
But it'd be great to do, and we have some really great growers in
It's just
the
sitting,
county.
it's all just sitting there.
Yeah,
But they need someone with an existing card license.
exactly.
So the group that joined our meeting from the Bronx, Cannabis Group, they have a card license.
Yeah, maybe that'd be a fun project for us.
Would be great. Yeah, I'm all for it.
Close on Wall Street.
I know we only told you we'd keep you about half an hour tonight, and so
Okay,
go ahead
that's
and
fine.
have any other questions.
I just want to congratulate you on that cannabis brief. That's so exciting.
Oh.
That's really great. Thank you. That's a totally unrelated subject. I have a lot passionate about.
Oh, you're in it.
Yeah.
Oh, good. I don't even know. I didn't know. Yeah, this is the EBTA.
Yeah.
Well, thank you all for your work, and I'm really eager to read this and really excited to collaborate with you all on this. And you've definitely given me now food for thought about the revenue.
Yeah, don't worry, I'll walk
You
around.
know, I've already put a proposal forward on how to spend the new occupancy tax revenue. Housing and transportation, because it's like, yeah, this is also a good one to consider. Budget is time. It's here, budget season is here. Well, thank you all for your work. Yeah, and feel free to reach out anytime.
Take it around.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, what's in it?
Yeah. Thank you all very much.
Thank you too.
So,
That was great. Lots of info.
There are a couple of ideas that jumped out at me as follow-up, even though I know that Jonathan and Merced have some other points on the agenda for tonight, as it's the last meeting, it doesn't mean that I hope it doesn't mean that this is the last time that we get to reach out to you guys to help with matters. And the idea of pulling together locations and submitting those to OCM, we all saw the mayor's perk up about that. And I know that everyone here probably has some ideas. I'm sure he's got some ideas in mind. And at a minimum, we could just have kind of a Google Doc and invite all of you to add based on your observations and communications, places that you think we should compile and then send on to OCM to consider. I think that's one just sort of open-ended task, and that can just stay open, and periodically, we can work with the mayor on that. And then the showcase idea is also pretty exciting. I'm sure he's gonna have some follow-up thoughts about it, but if we have a relationship, for whatever reason, for briefing reasons, I can't remember the name of the group, but, we know, and you guys probably know other folks who have card licenses, and we could be thinking about maybe getting them energized to do, what's happening in New Paltz here. I love New Paltz, but, there's no reason why we can't be, at or beyond where they are.
Yeah.
So that's all I had to say. I thought this was a very useful discussion. Oh, one more point, I do have one more thing to say. I'm trying to goad you to talk about the bus, because the idea of this brand and the quality management and an Ulster seal, and I'm looking at you because you raised some cultivation issues that I just never discussed in that level of detail.
Oh, yeah,
And so
it gets deep.
no, that's exciting stuff, and the mayor seemed very excited too, from, I guess, the environmental perspective, and if the county is doing that, thinking of Ulster quality, then people should be shuttled around.
Yeah.
To kind of, drive tourism and consumption to that
The
market.
first thing that has to happen though, is that Ulster has to gain quality. I was just at the revelry in Hudson, which was the legal market, and all the growers were there. And the quality's not there yet. So if you're gonna establish a brand that isn't up to par.
Yeah.
Then it's not a good idea to establish a brand yet.
Yes, of course.
You have to let these people produce a great product
Yeah.
so that it's associated with a great product, not, oh, Ulster County weed, forget it, don't buy any of that. And right now, that's where it's at, I hate to say.
Is
It's
it,
not
you're
there yet.
comparing it to the city?
I'm comparing it to the standard of weed from Cali, Colorado.
Right.
It's just
Oh,
Massachusetts.
wow, really?
It's not there. And I'm comparing it now to the legal market. The unlicensed market is 100 times better
Right,
than anything being grown on the licensed market.
Yeah.
But you guys really know this, and you guys, I'm trying to be as table inclusive as possible, but certainly you two are talking about a level of comparative exposure that I'm just going to venture to guess a lot of weed tourism, a lot of weed tourists are coming out. Oh, fall foliage. Oh, I heard about this restaurant. Oh, there's a festival. Oh, weed. They don't
Right.
have what you guys are bringing to the view of quality. And I don't disagree that the brand should elevate, but in terms of some of the tourist ideas that you guys were talking about, it does, casual consumers don't need that.
Yeah, right. But
right, there's the lay people that would just be happy to have it, and but the entrepreneur, the
However,
connoisseurs though.
anybody who's been smoking even before 3 years ago, which is 90% of the people who smoke, know what great weed is from the unlicensed market. So when they go into this and they go, oh my God, really?
Interesting.
Or it's sitting next to somebody's, an illegal store next door. And I'm not talking about bodegas who sell crappy weed.
Yeah.
In New York, there are clubs, which I am a member of, a bunch of them, that have unbelievable weed. And it looks like you're walking into the Gap.
Yeah.
These aren't shabby places where you're getting a Ziploc bag. These are all marketed, branded, gorgeous places that you want to hang out and smoke in, which we do.
For lounges,
For lounges, for
Oh,
dispensaries,
dispensaries.
for both.
They're like gray market dispensaries. There's one in Midtown that I'd highlight that you can look up called Cannabis Union.
Right.
And you feel like you're walking, and some people don't like this, but you felt like you were kind of in a more, in like an Apple store, except it had wood tables instead of everything being white.
Yeah.
But it was clean, the idea was just, it was clean, simple, professional.
Beautiful place
And,
to be in.
The quality was good, but I would say, what I was trying to raise with the county executive on quality is that seal shouldn't go on anything until some of these cultivators, maybe a couple of them are experienced, but a lot of these are farmers who have been farming other things and are now just getting into cannabis. It takes a long time to be like, to be able to look at the plant and know this is the nutrient it needs. This is the beginning of a bud rot. I better, cut leaves off to reduce the humidity and increase airflow in my field. Things like that you don't learn.
It's a science.
It's a science, and even newbies, because I think a lot of our tourism probably comes from surrounding states. New Jersey is now legal, Massachusetts, Canada. So people are coming here who mostly already have access to legal cannabis.
It's gotta be equally as.
So I was just trying to raise with her the need, some of the stuff that farmers need to produce higher quality cannabis costs a little extra. Doesn't require lights, it's still outdoor grown, but having a big tent that allows you to keep water off your cannabis can really lengthen the growing season. And when you lengthen the growing season, you increase the flavor and the potency and the size and quality.
So I hear a couple of things from this. One, I find it fascinating, because I've just never heard some of this discussion. But there also seems to be a space, coming back to our central mission, for
Yes.
asking the city to say, open up city hall or council chambers on a Saturday for a grower workshop, right? Because once this if that's a conversation, let's say you wanted to lead, or you're part of a group, whatever it is, that's the kind of ask that I think both the city would be amenable to, from what I'm hearing, but also that the county may provide some funds to support. And so that seems like a kind of, not next step, but down the road step to think about. How do you strengthen capacity, and how can the city of Kingston continue to stay at the forefront of helping that effort?
Yeah.
And then two, I'm pushing back I don't smoke, but some of my best friends do. And some of them come up to Kingston and Ulster County for the weekend, for the tourism, whatever. And I can just tell you, they are not at your level of quality recognition. So it strikes me as an opportunity to capitalize, pun intended, capitalize on sort of experience overall, as opposed to the pure consumption part of it, which is, all the other stuff about what makes this place so awesome to be in, even for a short time. And have somebody that's from here. Have some food, have some cheese, go to pairing up whatever it is as that quality rises with our food, our culture, our people, our music, our art.
Well, it's on my mind too, just kind of this idea of collaboration between the city and the county. I'm almost seeing potential for a bit of a state overlap that can, because I'm really hearing that there's this very particular expertise that goes into growing. And in terms of who might have that expertise, the first thing that comes to mind actually is Cornwall Cooperative, which we have, they have a location right in Plaza, I believe. I don't know if they're specifically doing stuff with cannabis. I really hope it would be, considering kind of work they've done with apple varietals, grape varietals, getting stuff that grows in our climate. So to me, that seems like a potential kind of natural outgrowth.
Also, the Rondout Valley Growers Association, they're an amazing group of people. they do good stuff.
Further on down the line, like when home cultivation is legal, I don't know when that
3
is.
years. Oh, no, July, next
Yeah,
July.
so when it's official, people are already doing it,
Everybody's doing it already.
but I think it would be great to hold some type of workshop learning session for residents of the city to learn how to cultivate their own, so they're not getting gouged out with their pocket. All their money isn't going to dispensaries, you know, we can let tourists spend that money at dispensaries. Cause it's actually surprisingly easy if people wanna home cultivate. You can get deeply complicated into it, but it's pretty easy, and it would be a good experience for when micro licensing becomes available for people who maybe never considered that. Perhaps someone who has an entrepreneurial spirit, a young person, comes to that workshop, learns how to train and grow a plant from people who know. Maybe they go on to get a micro license and are able to start their own thing, and this kind of homegrown economic opportunities for people here with those micro licenses.
I also hear in that, well, actually, when you were saying it, I was thinking of, well, why can't that be in one of our parks? And have, yes, the cannabis cultivation component, but also a range of other kind of food cultivating communities, especially some of, what's the name? There's like that Black Farmers Collective. I feel like that sometimes it's at the farmer's market, and then there are a couple of other people who've had kind of interesting farmer's market spaces, have like a Kingston Grow Your Own workshop in a park that gets money from the county, and it talks about like feed yourself, don't spend all your money in the dispensary, like how do you have clean, healthy food that's sustainable and like local, and it seems like some interesting community outreach and education.
There's also another alternative, speaking about like having a lounge without actually having a lounge. I'm a member in New York. I mean, they have one in Kingston, you know, co-work. In the Reagan building. Well, I'm a member of a place in New York called Work and Roll, which is the same exact concept. It's beautiful loft space with living rooms and breakout rooms and offices, except it's cannabis friendly. So right now, it's one of the places where a lot of the unlicensed market does business. But it's open to smoking weed. So if you could have a co-work space in Kingston, that's not licensed, it's a BYO, you rent your desk, you go to work, but you want to work and smoke. So why not have a co-work space in Kingston where you can go and work and bring your own weed?
Can I just ask you that, it's in New York City,
25th Street, yeah.
25th, well,
I can bring a guest if you'd ever like to go.
well, not that, I mean, and I wasn't just being snarky, I, for like lung reasons, I don't smoke weed, but where can you smoke indoors?
Okay, in New York,
Smoke anything,
unlicensed,
yeah,
there are, well, let's see, there's Hazy House Empire Cannabis Clubs, which has 3 locations, Astor Club, Canal Cafe.
sorry, I didn't mean like cannabis
Like
specific,
legally.
I mean, if it's a
legal.
workspace, like, if it's branded as, or like, if it's rented out as a workspace,
Right.
I don't know where you can smoke like tobacco.
There's no
cigarettes.
tobacco allowed at all.
So, but I think if we're treating them the same, where in a building indoors can you be smoking anything
Well,
that's not a
I'm not
license?
sure how that works, if it's a private company that has only to do with smoking. Look, you can have a cigar bar. They had one in Kingston uptown.
Yeah.
They smoke cigars indoors.
There's one.
So you can
Yes,
get,
in the city too, so.
in the city, there's
One on
hookah bars.
50th and Lex.
Right, and there's hookah bars all over the city. People smoke hookahs all the time, so you can get a license.
Hmm.
So this place is a legal place. In fact, one of the places in Housing Works, which is a legal place in New York, has a stand in this place. It's all empty, just their packaging. You could pick a product, call them, and they deliver.
Yeah.
But this is a place, I was just telling Emily,
Interesting.
yesterday, I was with 10 legal growers who were all there. They had product, we were comparing stuff. They were all in the legal business. However, for their own head, they were all growers. For their own head, they waited for our connection to buy unlicensed weed because it's so much better than what they're growing.
Were they local growers or just?
Local New York State
Oh, New
growers.
York State.
And we were buying from an unlicensed New York State grower who grows the most, I can't even tell you how great it is. It is at such a level over what's being grown, and the growers who are growing it in New York know it. For their own head, they're buying eighth ounces, when they're growing hundreds of pounds. But for their own smoking, it's like having a great bottle of bourbon, a great bottle of single malt, a great wine. It's like having a variety of your own bar. So you have a little bit of like a lot of different great things. You know what I'm talking about, right, Jeremy?
Well, I think we decided against the long meetings, so maybe it would be worth talking a little bit about the draft memorializing resolution. Because I did hear, it sounds like certainly the county executive knows, even though she's a little at a remove, she still has her finger on the pulse somewhat. And I haven't heard about funds coming to our level, to help us with all of this, like to give us some of the money for the Money in the Park program, or the workshops, or the whatever we want to do to help our local folks, and I don't know that that's forthcoming, but Marissa and Jonathan have put together this draft, which we were hoping you could give feedback on giving us more local funding to help roll this out, or to help fund our local small business czar, or probably can't be specific, but kind of small business development czar with focus on cannabis. So if you can take a look at that and think about any sort of ways that, if you think we should try to take it to the council, and if so, in this form, are there any other ideas, markups, edits?
So when I read it earlier, I saw something on the second page that I don't know if there was a word left out or something, but
Very well big.
blah, 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 which will issue grants to qualified community-based nonprofit organizations. Should it be comma, local governments to support?
Oh.
It's like a run-on.
Yes, I did that, I think I kind of. Yeah.
The editor side.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's definitely like little nits there. We will definitely do another pass for that kind of thing as well. And this is also something that kind of happens beyond this meeting too, if we, over time, if you have anything you'd like to send back to us. But the time we do have here, just sort of bigger things in terms of what we're asking, how we're asking.
These are all really good asks. I don't have any seeds to pick out.
No, I thought it was great.
I don't know if John and Lisa muted.
John, with us here, I think. Yeah, just discussions over there.
Great.
If you guys didn't have any more thoughts on that, I think, like we started out talking about, our office has been pretty tied up with other stuff this week, but we will turn to this and the council.
Also, I know Jeremy would do, but if there's anything information wise that you need, I know we're ending tonight. My
You could be
email
a taste
address.
tester.
Yeah,
Oh, I'm
I need
ready.
taste test.
Yeah,
It gets the stew seal of approval, right?
I actually have a stream called The Stew. Yes, I do. I do. It's in the name. Go to my YouTube channel. Check, if you really want to know, I have interviews with some of the greatest growers. I have a YouTube channel, it's called The Stone and Bowler, where I do interviews with people in business. We get high and go bowling.
Where?
on YouTube.
No, where you won't.
Oh, I've done episodes in Amsterdam and in Netherlands. I've
Will you
done-
email us your,
That would be fantastic.
Yeah, I'll give you my card.
there's
No, email,
all
I lose, yeah.
of us,
What is this?
Yeah, well, or I'll try to spend it and get in trouble.
Since your card is not real money.
Well,
I love, I'm saying, I'll try to
this
spend
is
it and get in trouble.
fantastic.
Just go and subscribe, please.
I subscribe to it.
Wow.
And I,
You're subscribed.
and I
This
like
is so adorable, I love it.
this.
Oh, that's great. So, yeah.
Well, Jonathan, Marissa, did you have anything before we give you guys your certificate?
I thought this was the sugar.
So this is just the final little thing. It's really not much of the amount of work involved with this, but we did want to put together something small. And John, we can send this to you as well. We'll get it to you somehow, one way or another. So we just put together a couple of our fancy old certificates here.
Wow.
Oh, now I can go to my family and say, look, my cannabis fascination. That's
Save the
kids.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all, and, I don't know if, it took a while for us to sometimes get everything together and, but this group has done obviously what, other municipalities have not, number one. But from my perspective, it's also been, even beyond the cannabis part, incredibly valuable in getting some more voices into kind of, it's on the official board or commission, but that sort of advisory work, but also thinking about how, we had the mayor and the council coming together to look at the applications and it's just been a beautiful process. And if you hear some of what the council's working on going forward, with the parking group, for example, it's building on this model of the applications and the diverse views and the appointment. And so it's just been a wonderful experience. I know for me, I think for everybody in my office to be. Thank you.
It's been a wonderful experience.
Yeah.
I've had such a great time. I don't want it to end. If we could ever help more, I mean, it's been really wonderful on so many levels.
Great. Well, I think maybe we can officially close, but I really want you guys to eat the brownies.
You don't have to get smart, I'm gonna have
So with that, I think I'll wrap up for the night. Also, again,
Thank you
thanks,
so
John. I'm sorry you weren't able to get audio, but we're glad to have you here. So yeah, thank you again.
Thanks for the brownies. The first committee